So next we have actually a nicely related talk. This is a talk on advocacy, and it's advocacy in the public format instead of for yourselves. We're really honored to have Katie Maslow join us. She works for the Alzheimer's Association Public Policy Office in Washington, D.C., and she's interested in quality care advocacy and is among the most important people doing this kind of work. This is, crucial. This is, I can't tell you how important it is to have this kind of public policy effort going, and so we're pretty pleased to have Katie discuss with us advocacy.
I think that God has given me the mountain of making a PowerPoint presentation to you after Michael. So I'll try. It was a very inspiring talk, very right for all of us. So we've heard a great deal of science this morning, a lot of fascinating discussion about new breakthroughs, new science, new findings, and then Michael's talk. What I want to talk to you about today is there a light? Do you think there's a light? Thank you so much. It's perfect. Oh, well. This is good. Leave the lights, would you? I'm going to talk to you about advocacy. The advancer? Yes. So what is advocacy? Advocacy is defined as pleading for a cause, bringing attention to an issue, a problem, or a need. Why advocacy? So in this context, and I think following what Michael talked to us about, advocacy is, this is relevant for us today because this is an issue that all of you care about, and because changes are needed in this area. Changes are needed in the science aspect, in the development of medications, of treatments, of cure. So changes are needed that require actions that must be taken by other people, not by each of us. And the most effective way to make the needed changes happen is through the actions of others. All of you obviously have plenty of other things to do. I'm going to try to convince you as I go through this rest of this presentation that you, or maybe you can convince someone else, that advocacy about this issue, about frontotemporal dementia, is important and needs a little bit of your time. So first, what kind of changes are needed? As I said, I think that the research developments are exciting in this area, looking an important cause or issue that one might advocate for is research for a way to prevent, treat, delay onset or progression, or reduce the symptoms of FTD. This is a federal government issue. The federal government, the National Institutes of Health, is the only source of the kind of money that's needed to push forward some of the work that Dr. Grossman and all of the people that talked to us this morning are interested in doing. The target for this advocacy is the U.S. Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate, and the ask. So if you were going to go and advocate for this issue, the ask is funding for the National Institutes of Health. I think that the relevant institutes are the National Institute on Aging, NINCDS, and the National Institute on Mental Health. So asking for funding and perhaps a congressional mandate for an NIH or a specific institute study or research that would focus on specific issues. This morning when John Trojanowski was talking, he handed out, or we all received, a summary of consensus FTD therapy recommendations. These are areas of research and translational opportunities that need funding. It's exciting what he had to say. I think that he feels and others feel that we're on the brink of finding some kind of cure, but it's going to take a lot of money to do any of the things on this list that we have. So this is a list of asks. If you were to advocate with your congressman for funding for the National Institutes of Health to do something, this is a list of somethings that you might ask for. So I'm going to be repeating through this, this idea of the target, who you're going to ask, and the ask, the specific, what is it that you want. This is not a topic that we've talked about a lot today, but last June, the Alzheimer's Association put out a document that was a first for us on early onset dementia. It was about all kinds of dementias that occur in people under age 65. As you know, most people with Alzheimer's disease are over age 65, and that's been the sole focus of the work of the Alzheimer's Association for many years. Some of our chapters across the country also work with and for people under age 65, but really the national office has not done that. So this was a first for us, this report that we put out. This is it. It's available for downloading from the Alzheimer's Association website, www.alz.org. If you just type in early onset report in the box at the front page, you get a copy of it. So one of the issues that we have not worked on before, because we haven't worked on care of people under age 65, is this question of health insurance. I'm not sure how many of you are dealing with this issue. A person who needs care, needs health care, is too young for Medicare, or is in that 2-year wait period when they're eligible for SSDI disability insurance, but they're waiting for Medicare. So this is an issue that we came to see as extremely important for non-elderly people with dementia, and maybe an issue that you care about also. This is an issue that is primarily a federal issue, but also could be a state issue. So the target, and again, going back to that idea of who are you asking, the target here is the U.S. Congress, House or Senate, and in some states, and I don't know about Pennsylvania, but in some states, the state legislature. So in some states now, as you may be aware, Massachusetts is an example, Maine is an example. There's an effort to create health insurance for everyone, to make everyone eligible for some kind of health insurance under age 65. So in those states, or even in states that haven't thought of this yet and aren't working on it, that maybe is a target, your state legislature. Here, the ask is, and I've got 3 possible asks. One is, make Medicare available for people under age 65. A second ask is, make Medicare available to people who are eligible for SSDI without a 2-year wait. If you chose that ask, there's a very large group, a very energetic group of people, disability advocates, who are working on this. There's legislation in Congress now, and has been for several years, on this issue to vanish that 2-year wait. That's an important issue. A third would be to make state-subsidized insurance available for people under age 65 with specific conditions, so dementia, Alzheimer's, frontotemporal disease, and so on. Here's another example of an issue that a problem or need that you might want to advocate on. It is the eligibility and funding for services. Again, in our report, we found really heartbreaking situations, people who couldn't find any services for the person with dementia that they were trying to take care of. They couldn't even find who to ask about those services. So, as many of you have probably experienced, there aren't services for people under age 65 with dementia. There aren't services for people under age 65 with Alzheimer's disease, and I suspect that there aren't services for people with frontotemporal disease either. The people are excluded by the eligibility criteria, which sets eligibility at 60 or 65 in most of our government-funded programs, or by lack of funding for services. Here, this could be a federal, state, or local government issue. The target, again, the U.S. Congress, your state legislature, your county, or your city government. And the ask is create and fund a new program, or if you know there is a program, here's one example. The U.S. Department of Aging has a program that provides transportation and caregiver support and that kind of thing for elderly people. So people with dementia who are over 60 are eligible. One of their programs is the National Family Caregiver Support Program. It provides support for family caregivers of people who are over age 60. But what if your person, the person you're taking care of, is younger? Last summer, as part of the advocacy that we've embarked on because of our report, we got a change made in that legislation so that it's tiny and it's not tiny, so that caregivers of people under age 65 with dementia, Alzheimer's, frontotemporal dementia, any dementias, those caregivers can get any services that are available through these AAA programs funded by the National Family Caregiver Support Program. So what I'm saying is you can expand eligibility and funding for an existing program as well. Some other issues that we found in our work, problems that were being confronted by people with dementia that began at an earlier age, under age 65. Incredible difficulty getting a diagnosis, years going by when the person doesn't have a diagnosis, has a wrong diagnosis. It was so interesting this morning, and I think, Dr. Grossman, it was you, said people with FTD need to have an evaluation by an experienced neurologist. So there's a couple here, there's a couple at University of California, San Francisco, there's a few at Northwestern. I think there are a few other places in the country that have that person there to do that diagnosis. There is no such resource, no neurologist who's knowledgeable about FTD in most parts of the country. And that's even true for Alzheimer's disease. So I think that issue, the diagnostic issue, is very difficult. Employment, people who lose their job, no one knows why they're losing their job. They don't, the employer doesn't, the family member doesn't. This is an issue that needs advocacy. I talked about getting disability insurance, health insurance. People have very, very high out-of-pocket expenditures for health care, don't have funding to pay for it. And then the lack of appropriate services, and that's this last thing. What kind of services are available to the person that you are caring for? What kind of services are needed? And can you advocate for better care, better services, expansion of funding? I've talked only so far about advocating with an elected body, an elected official. There are other ways of advocating, and the Alzheimer's Association has been doing this increasingly, and it's equally valuable, I think. You can advocate with government agencies, so this is executive branch advocacy. You're trying to work with an agency at the federal level, at the state level, at the local level, to change regulations, develop a new program, create a task force on FTD. I don't know if that's happened any place in a at a state government level yet. Add advocates on FTD to advisory boards. Another target of this is non-government advocacy, also very potentially successful. Professional associations, medical associations. I think that there already have been developed some guidelines for diagnosis from some medical associations. Is that right? There are. But guidelines for care, training, development of a study group, conference session, the kind of conference session that resulted in the research needs that Dr. Trojanowski passed out to us. And then advocacy directly with community agencies. So that means agencies that you might be using for someone that you're taking care of. Advocacy that they have training for their staff, some requirements for their staff, that they have the appropriate environment in a, for example, residential care facility. So these are other targets for advocacy. Media attention. One of the things that I have been surprised at over this year since we put out our report on early onset Alzheimer's and other dementias is the interest of the press in non-elderly people with dementia. It's absolutely amazing. I don't know if any of you have seen this. Last week on Monday, it was the front of USA Today and the front of U.S. News and World Report was a non-elderly person. These articles focused on Alzheimer's disease. As I said earlier, Alzheimer's is mostly in older people. Your issue is mostly in younger people. It seems to me that there's a potential for tremendous media attention to your issue. This media attention is, you're not really advocating with the media, you're trying to use media to increase awareness of the problem, which is critically needed, to surface new advocates, other people who are interested in your issue, and to influence legislators, government agencies, and non-government groups. And I was just imagining what would happen to the association, your association, if Oprah said frontotemporal dementia, and she had a person with that condition and a caregiver, and she had a book, and maybe what she had is the new edition of the Caregiver Guide that's about to come out in the summer. Your website would be jammed with people trying to get more information. You would have a lot of additional calls, you would have a lot of interest, and you would develop a lot of new advocates, meaning that instead of you having to do everything, you would have more people to help. So a couple of how-tos, and some of you are more knowledgeable about this than I am, and some of you are actually doing this already, so forgive me. But for people who aren't already doing this, don't mail a letter to your congressman in Washington. The anthrax protections mean that it doesn't get there for a really long time. Wait till your congressman comes home for the recess, which he or she will for the 4th of July and for most of August and so on. Wait till the person comes home, and if you have the nerve, if you can work up the nerve, if you can find someone to go with you, go, tell your story, take your asks, be as specific as possible. That's a that will have a huge impact. I think that people sometimes think that congresspersons don't care, but if you're their constituent and you care enough to go there, it will make a huge difference. Put a face on the problem. As I said earlier, a person with the condition and a family member are critical. Somebody to show, this happened to me, it's happening to me, here's what I see as the problem, as the possible solution. Provide information. A report helps. You'll have the release of these, this list of research issues and an article. You have your caregiver guide coming out. You have a lot of very good medical people who could, I'm sure, pull together something that would be something like a report. So it's good to have a report. It doesn't have to be the best possible report. It just is to provide some information, and it is information about what the problem is and what it is that you want, what you see the solution as. And then lastly, simplify and specify the ask as much as you can. Ask for exactly what you want. Thinking about this group and your issue and who you might partner with. I'm sure some of you have thought of this, and I think that this is worth thinking about and worth considering. Other disease groups are a possibility, disability groups are a possibility, professional associations, provider groups are a possibility. Any of those groups that are interested and share a concern about the issue. Which issue, the research issue is obviously important to many of you. I think it's very important in terms of progress in this area, but there are other issues, health insurance, services. There are other issues that I talked to you about before. In thinking about partnering with another group, I think the important issue is whether you can keep your ask front and center while you're working with another group, and you don't want that other group's ask to take precedence over yours. So again, where I started, why advocacy? Why add this to all the millions of things that you already have to do, the difficulty that you're already having if you are a caregiver? Advocacy is the only way to get to some of the changes you want, and it's the most effective way to get to other changes. Thank you.